Andrew Cuomo and Carl Palladino finally faced off in a debate this past week, along with 5 other minor party candidates. It's likely that that debate was the first and the last in the race for governor, despite a number of calls for a one-on-one debate between the 2 major party candidates. Joining us to talk about the governor's race and more is Errol Louis, columnist with the Daily News and the host of WWRL Radio Morning Show. And also with us is Lee Miringoff, the director of the Marist Institute for Public Opinion. Gentlemen, always a pleasure to have you here with us. Lee, I know
he gets up early and pollsters stay out very late. So
there you go.
Pollsters come out at night. Yeah, this is the only time we get to see each other.
Yeah, the entire time. Lee, I know Marist has just come out with a poll. Give us a quick overview of the numbers.
Well, you know, Andrew Cuomo, the current Attorney General running for governor, of course, has opened up a very substantial lead over Carl Palladino, 23 points. He has 60% right now to 37 for Palladino. I mean, there's a tidal wave going around the country, but right now the water in New York is still Democratic blue, and as far as the governor is concerned.
So no all-nighter for the governor's race?
Well, there'll be a couple of individual races that are worth watching. And of course, the Attorney General's race is much closer than the governor's race.
Right.
So there's plenty of drama going on. And the controller's race, which to me is kind of a wild card. I haven't seen the latest polls, but the candidate that nobody expected to go anywhere, the Republican candidate, Harry Wilson, endorsed by all of the major newspapers and sort of running all over the state.
Yeah, but this is where Carl Palladino may also be hurting, because although there's more Republican enthusiasm than Democratic enthusiasm in New York as there is elsewhere, the Democrats have a lot of points to give in New York because they have such a huge registration advantage, and Carl Palladino is not really getting any top of the ticket generating enthusiasm for these down ballot races.
And of course, you know, all of us in the media, or at least the TV end of it, are whining about not getting that, you know, debate between Cuomo and Palladino. But if you were Cuomo, you probably wouldn't debate right now either, would you?
No, that's right. There's nothing for him to gain by debating, and a couple of places where he could actually lose.
And the downside is, do you think voters know what he's going to do if he is elected?
Well, he has his plan, and I think he's articulated that to some degree. But there's no sense.
You've polled. Do you think voters really know what that plan is?
What they know about this race right now, 59% tell us that Carl Palladino is unfit to be governor. 62% have a negative impression of him. So right now, Andrew Cuomo, 59% approval rating. They like him. They don't like Palladino. Voters don't need to know much more, although clearly, as far as the governing side is concerned, it would sure be beneficial if they had a better sense of where the state is ultimately going to go on the deficit and other issues.
And to be fair about it, Cuomo has published, I think, now 5 different book-length explanations of what he wants to do. Even understanding that politicians don't always keep their word, the reality is with a state workforce as large as New York, there's a lot of people who are going to come into office and they're mid-level bureaucrats and they've got to figure out what their marching orders are. Those books are going to be their marching orders. And so they do kind of give you a sense of where the administration's priorities are going to be.
In terms of the economy, I know you polled about that as well, Lee. What are voters in New York saying about the economy right now?
They're concerned about jobs, but you don't need a Marist poll to tell you that. But I think one of the things that's interesting is we've been asking whether the glass is half empty or half full.
And what are we saying?
Whether we've turned the economic corner or not on that. And what's very interesting about that question is that if you think, in fact, we've turned the economic corner, you like Barack Obama, and you're likely to vote Democratic. But in a lot of states and nationally, the numbers suggest that people still think the worst is yet to come. In that case, you're thinking about voting Republican. And that's why there's so many Democratic senators around the country who are really fighting for their political lives in states that Barack Obama carried handily just 2 years ago.
I found it interesting. Last week we had a poll come out that 91% of New Yorkers are actually happy. I thought that was great. On a different note, though, in terms of Albany and the corruption issue, we've now got 2 more legislators who are going to be under a federal investigation, Sampson and Smith. What's going to happen with that, Errol?
Well, it's hard to say where the investigation is going to go, but it couldn't come at a worse time. I mean, we have polls, and we know that the public is disgusted with what goes on in Albany, and this is chapter and verse of what is wrong with Albany. That something that really should be pretty simple. You know, it's not the only place. It's not the first state in the country that ever had a parcel of land that they needed to sell and a concession that they needed to bid out, you know, and somehow they just couldn't manage to get it done. And there are all of these accusations now of improper influence and information going where it wasn't supposed to, possible perjury when they were put under oath and asked about it and so forth. And, you know, going into an election when you know that lots of people were already disgusted with the ways of Albany, this just lends more grist to the mill. This just confirms what voters already were saying.
Yeah, and if there ever was an election, this being the midterm election, and the Democrats are in power, and we've had such a mess in Albany, 3/4 think the state's headed in the wrong direction, major changes are needed, you would think the Republicans would punch through. They didn't run a slate of quality candidates statewide, and that's why they're really not looking looking strong at all for Tuesday election day.
Prediction for the state Senate?
I have no idea. I've been talking to people who are running in lots of different contested districts in Suffolk and Nassau, in upstate, and so on, and everybody is telling me that it's going to be a real squeaker and that we should all expect to be up pretty late on election night.
For those races, but you don't think so for the governor's race, right?
No, that one we might know fairly early, but the rest actually matters quite a bit. Who the next governor will be working with is going to be a key question.
It is important.
And he'll be watching that, I'm sure.
Yes, exactly.
Whoever that governor is.
Whoever that governor is. Gentlemen, thanks. Good to have you with us again this morning. And that's going to do it for this edition of Up Close. If you missed any of today's program, you can catch it again on our website, 7online.com. We want to thank you all for watching. I'm Diana Williams. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you, thank you. Hold on to this shot and then we'll be done.